Good evening. Gosh, I can't see anybody out there. All I can see is bright lights, but I know we have quite a few attendees, so thank you and welcome. Tonight is the last in the series of The Hand of Fashion. It's an initiative of the Deans of Art and Design and the Dean of Graduate Studies, Joanne Arbuckle and Mary Davis. And it's a direct result of the dedication of Simone Cipriani, the founder of the Ethical Fashion Initiative, a flagship program of the International Trade Center, and a joint agency of the United Nations and the WTO. The EFI advocate for a more responsible and sustainable fashion industry, and they harness the power of fashion as a vehicle out of poverty by connecting artisans in the developing world to fashion supply chain. Since its inception, the initiative has worked with emerging African designers to promote their talent at an international level in support of Made in Africa production. So tonight's speaker, speaking along with Simone, is Aurora James. She is a Toronto native living in New York. She's the founder of Brother Vellies, which was founded with two main goals: to introduce her favorite traditional African footwear to the world, and to create and sustain artisanal jobs in Africa. Their incredible line of footwear is handmade in South Africa, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Morocco. And the brand is built on the success of their very first model, the Velskoen, which is traditional African sort of desert boot, which is relatively, or was relatively, unknown outside of Africa. So Brother Vellies assemble a few dozen pairs of shoes a day by hand, and entirely by hand, using traditional techniques. And they welcome artisans to their workshop of all genders, sexual orientations, backgrounds, and tribes. So before I hand over the speaking to our two honored guests tonight, I'd like to recognize the enormous commitment of Simone Cipriani and the Ethical Fashion Initiative in putting this series together. It's been an amazing experience sharing their incredible wealth of knowledge in sustainable fashion with all of us at FIT, all of you in the audience, whether you're an FIT student, a faculty, a staff member, or part of our extended FIT family and community. We've been honored to have been the recipient of such incredible knowledge, as well as his commitment and generosity, and we owe him an enormous debt of gratitude. We hope to announce as we go ahead some new initiatives, and so just keep an eye on this space. Thank you very much.
Grazie, Sas. Mamma mia, after such an introduction, what can I say? I have a lot of dedication, as you say. I don't know exactly what it means, but I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be here because we had a beautiful series of conversation, and because today we have Aurora James. You all know who is Aurora James. She's a genius of shoe design. You know, I started my career in shoes. And when you start with shoes, you remain with shoes for the rest of your days. And Aurora is a young designer who's been able to create a brand of accessories, of shoes, which has been successful immediately. She started, I think, 3 years ago. 3 years ago. And she's already a recipient of many awards. She's already known in the sector as probably the most innovative shoe designer of her generation. So today we have a real conversation. Usually we have an introduction of mine, and then a conference of the host, and then of the guest, and then we have questions. Today we have a conversation. Have a real conversation. Feel free to intervene in the conversation, or you can also wait for the end of it, and then you ask questions. I'm not feeling at ease by being seated like this, because usually I walk around and I do a lot of, I come from cabaret before shoes. But today I'll be seated and I will behave. So Aurora, first of all, first question, why shoes? Why did you start? Why shoes? Why?
Well, I've always loved shoes. I mean, I think that
That's
has
a
to be the
beautiful
root of
statement,
it,
a beautiful
right? I
statement.
think that has to be the root of it. But I think also for me, as a consumer, I identified that there was a gap there. And I think that, I was seeing a lot of the same thing over and over again, and it was never really what I wanted to wear. And I don't think that we should just be creating things for the sake of creating things at this point. I think we have to actually be sure that there is a need in the industry for it. And I saw that. And I was like, I love these shoes. I love shoes. So I'd started traveling to Africa and just kind of seeing what people were making there. And I also saw that, there was a tremendous skill there. And I thought that we could do something together. I didn't know it was going to turn into this.
And that's the thing which has always impressed me of you, the fact that since the very beginning you created a brand to work with artisans.
Yeah.
This series of conversations is called the hand of fashion, and it's the hand of the artisans.
Right.
It's about sustainability, and our concept at the Ethical Fashion Initiative of sustainability is that sustainability is a function of how you treat people in the supply chain. That's why artisans are at the heart of a supply chain. So what's the concept of the brand? Why Africa, why artisans? From the very beginning, you started with that. People
Yeah.
start a shoe brand and they go to Italy, or they go to Spain, or they stay in New York.
Right.
But or somebody goes to England if they want the Goodyear welted shoes. But why Africa? Why the artisans?
Well, I mean, the first shoes that we ever made were desert boots, and that's a traditional South African and Namibian shoe called a velskoen, or as we call it, a velly, or as people here in New York typically call it, a velly. And I just saw these shoes and I thought they were amazing. And I learned the history of the shoe and I realized that Clark's had actually based their initial desert boot off of this African shoe shape. And when I was talking to a lot of the people who were working there, they were saying, we're all losing work. No one wants to really wear these shoes locally anymore. People in South Africa wanted to wear what Kanye was wearing for the most part, which did not include those shoes. And I just thought that that was kind of a shame. And I thought that they were amazing. And I knew that if I did a little bit of tweaking and brought them back home, that I could sell some of them to my friends because my friends would like them. So it was sort of just about that. It was like, for me, it was a little bit of a hustle initially because I was like, okay, I have this much money. I'm going to buy this many shoes and I'm going to bring them back to Brooklyn and sell them. And most people don't know this. And I actually had blocked it out of my mind, I guess. But the first batch of shoes I ever really sold was at the Flea.
Seriously?
Yeah, I set up a booth. It was in the Lower East Side. I forget what it's called. Maybe you guys know, but it was like a little kind of flea market, sort of, where it was half food and half like goods that people were selling, vintage stuff. And I would bring the shoes there and I would sell them.
So you started that out of pure passion. You don't have a formal training in shoemaking or
No,
shoe design.
no. I went to school for journalism. So I've always been very curious. And I think it was my curiosity that sort of led me there. So there was just about taking one day at a time and taking one shipment at a time and then saying, okay, how can I further tweak this? And my friends all really liked them. So then it was like word of mouth. I kept spreading. And then Umberto from Opening Ceremony called and was like, this is cool.
So let me understand. You saw a beautiful product made by artisans in Africa. You fell in love.
Totally.
And you started selling that. That's how it started.
And
So-
I got pissed. I was a little bit mad because I was like, well, Clark's is selling a lot of these, and this shoe is better, and these people in Africa don't have a job, so I just don't understand. And I knew that like a lot of my guy friends who were wearing Clark's, if they knew that there was this alternative option, they would totally go for it. So a little bit was like out of sheer annoyance. It was like, okay, like we need to educate people about this.
And this kind of African boot, the stitch down African boot,
Yeah.
is really everywhere in Africa. You are right. It's
Totally.
something incredible. Could we say that the lack of a formal training in shoemaking enabled you to have a different view and to start
Absolutely.
an innovative business?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone, including you, know that about me, that it was sort of like my ignorance about shoes also kind of led me to do what I'm doing. Because there was a lot of things when I first started where people were like, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? And then it's just about how can we tweak it so we can do that? Like, oh, you can't put like springbok fur that way on the back of a shoe because, you know, we use these things to cut it out, and that would just cut, and it's like, so then let's do it a different way.
That's incredible because we started the Ethical Fashion Initiative exactly in the same way, by seeing something beautiful with artisans and thinking about that. And everybody was telling us, all the experts of development, because I came from the industry, but all the experts of development, they used to tell us it's impossible, you're going to fail. And that happened to you as well. And look where you are now.
I mean, people all day. I've also had people, I had one store in Brooklyn actually, was like, I just want to let you know that like you're selling these things from Africa, and they're our best-selling thing that we've ever sold, but you know they're from Africa, so you need to bring the price down because once people find out that it's made in Africa, they're not going to be willing to pay this much money. Can you imagine?
Can you imagine? I know, you know, I was in your shop today down in South Manhattan, and I have a prohibition, a ban from my wife to buy another pair of shoes before summer because the house is full of shoes of mine, and I'm a maniac of shoes, and I was so tempted to buy a Brother Vellis. So I will wait until June when I am back, and then I'll go and do it.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting to see that the lack of a formal training and the capacity to see things in a different way enabled you to start a new concept and to work with artisans. Because everybody who starts a new brand of shoes now goes the industrial way to a service center for industrialization in Italy, and then to a big factory, and then to China, and then to here, to there. But you didn't do anything about that. You went straight to the artisans and you started sourcing from them.
Yeah.
And in, what was it you said, in South Africa?
Yes, South Africa.
And now you work South Africa?
South Africa, Kenya, Morocco, and Ethiopia.
Kenya, Morocco, and Ethiopia.
Yeah.
In Morocco, you said you work in Marrakesh, and you make shoes there as well.
Yes.
So what do you make where?
Okay, so basically how I typically started is I start with a style that's traditional to that region. So I never planned on going outside of South Africa, but it was like I started with the desert boots. That's where those were from, so we have to make them there.
Yeah.
And then I went to Kenya and I saw that they were making sandals. I saw the tire sandals and I was like, huh, this is really interesting. So I kind of sat down and like worked out a pattern and stuff with them in Kenya with some of the guys who were there, just like making them by hand in like basically just off the street. And then I went back to South Africa and I was like, okay guys, let's do this. Let's make a sandal. And they were like, oh. And I was like, what? You don't like them? They're cool. And they were like, oh. And I was like, what's wrong? And they were like, no, let's just stick with the boots. And I was like, no, like really, like let's try to make a sandal because it's good, it's great, and like it'll sell, and therefore. And it was like, oh, okay. So then we did like a first season of sandals with them, and it was like torture. They just were like completely uninterested in doing it. And I was like, well, it's not intuitive to them. They're not inspired by it. They're super excited to make the desert boots, but they're not sandal people. Yeah. They're not wearing sandals. Yeah. They don't care about the sandals. Yeah. So why don't I actually make these with the people who would be excited about making them, and it's intuitive to them because they're already making it. So we went back to the first people that I worked with on and was like, hey, do you guys want to make it? And they were like, absolutely. And then they're excited about it. So when you start off in that way, where you're working with people who are like excited and energized about things that are a part of their culture that they're proud of, you're going to get a very different result than if you're just going to Kenya and being like, okay, can you make this silk dress for me that they have no personal connection to? So that's how we brought Kenya into the picture.
Into the picture.
Yeah, and then with Morocco, it was because I wanted to make babouche, which are obviously traditional to that region.
And Ethiopia.
And Ethiopia. Well, Ethiopia has been great because it's a lot of like raw materials and stuff that we're sourcing from there, but they predominantly do our heels, as you know. As I know,
yeah, because we produce the Brother Vellis shoes at the Ethical Fashion Initiative in Ethiopia, and Aurora is our leader in shoes. There's gorgeous shoes. Hey, come on, guys, these are gorgeous shoes. And
we need to get you in this pair.
Ethiopia and all the rest. We have to produce more. We have to sell more. But there's a lesson in here, and the lesson is the fact that artisans have disappeared from the value chain of the fashion industry. You had to go to Africa to find artisans everywhere. and to see artisanal products everywhere on the street, in the markets. You used to see that in Italy when I was a boy.
Yeah.
You had the products of the artisans, for instance, in Florence, my town, in the market of San Lorenzo, you had the products of the artisans everywhere.
Yeah.
Now you don't have them anymore. So if you go to Italy, you see some industrial product around, you don't know where to go and where to buy the shoes. But there, in places where you still have this culture, this artisanal culture, you can go around, you can see the products on the street, and you can see the artisan, and you can go to the artisan, and you can get the artisan to produce something for you.
Yeah.
So this is a richness which we have lost over the years in favor of mass production, big marketing, big strategies, and this and that. But this is what allows people like Aurora to start a new and a successful brand, the connection with the makers. That's why the hands of people are in the shoes of Aurora. What are the challenges that you have met in working with the artisans? Because these are not a simple environment, easy places to work.
Yeah, I think for sure scaling, because it's for me, I would go somewhere like Kibera and I would be like, oh wow, these people are carving animal bones. Let's do beads,
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, one pair of sandals is like, 500 beads that they're hand carving out of animal bone. So that's all well and good for like one pair, 5 pairs, 20 pairs. But then when you have like, a big retailer come to you and say, can we do 300 pairs of these, it's a little bit of a challenge. And to scale something like that, you can go to a bunch of artisans and be like, okay, like, can you train more people? But then what happens the following season if you don't work with that material again? So I think that just being really, having close personal relationships with all of the artisans that you're working with and knowing their capabilities and then designing with them in mind is also extremely important.
That's a bloody good point. We always say to the industry, when designers come to work with us, look, you've got to design on the basis of the skills and the materials that are available with the artisans. Otherwise, it's not designing, it's doing something which is impossible. And the other point is to have the possibility, we experienced that in our program, to bring together several artisans around a hub, a place that can coordinate their work in order to achieve the scale that a brand like your brand need. And what are the challenges financially? Because, this is why I asked that to you, because whenever here you have the students of FIT, and many of these students one day will try to create their own brand.
Yeah.
Whenever you speak about new brands, you have always the issue of finance. And people say, you read all these articles on business of fashion everywhere. To start a new brand, you need $1 million, you need $2 million, you need an invest, you need this, you need that. You started that very small with the artisans in Africa. So what's the financial challenge?
Well, I started my business with $5,000, which is kind of crazy, but just shows that it's possible.
It's absolutely crazy, but it shows it's possible. Absolutely.
Yeah, it shows that it's possible. I think that it's about really like, you have to know that you're not going to make money anytime soon.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. Like you're not going to be like balling out in your own salary or like anything like that. It's like not happening. And you have to be dedicated to really working around the clock. You have to have that passion because no one's going to do it for you. And you have to be willing to develop your personal relationships. Like Press has been a good friend of mine for a really long time. But as you scale, I was really grateful to win the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund, which was a really healthy, investment into my business financially. But it's hard because, you have these like wholesale accounts that want to place orders. You have to be able to finance all of that. So I think it's really about being strategic. For me, it was going to direct it, like right off the bat, like finding who my customer was, utilizing free marketing, which to me was social media and press, and trying to get people onto my website because that was like an immediate, support system financially. And even our website is still the backbone of our business.
That's
even
a very
now.
good point, because through social media, in the day of today, I remember the old days, 20 years ago, everything was shaped by big distributors, big brands, big media, the triangle. Everything was controlled by them. And so a new brand was an impossible task. To incorporate a new brand was an impossible task because you had to go through them.
Yeah.
You needed money. But today you can have a dialogue through social media with the customers.
Totally.
And it's a different kind of dialogue. That's what you do. So what is your selling strategy? You have a mix of retail and online. How do you do that?
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of online?
Yeah, I started online, and our online is the backbone of our business. And then we also have a store in this. Basically, okay, I started online, and then I ended up in a situation where I had like 1,000 shoes in my apartment. And I had these people emailing me being like, I really want to buy the shoes, but I don't know what size I am, and I'm wondering if there's anywhere that I can go. And I'd be like, you can come over, but which I did, and
online.
Right. And my boyfriend was like, I don't know if these people should be coming over anymore to try on shoes. This is our house, and I was like, right. So then I thought to myself, like, okay, I have all these shoes. The natural next step is to put the shoes in a place where people can easily access them, and then I realized that meant a store. So then we opened a store. So now our online inventory and our store, it's all shared inventory. So
Okay.
it makes perfect sense. And also New Yorkers are extremely lazy, and they love this thing called same-day delivery, which we can do very easily from our store as well. So that all kind of clicked and made sense. Where it got further complicated was when we started working with wholesale, which was like really strongly, I would say, it happened about 1.5 years ago. And the main reason, to be honest, that I work with wholesale accounts is because it raises more awareness of the brand and then drives more customers to our online store.
Yes.
So I typically think of our retailers as strategic partners that we have long-term relationships with, like an opening ceremony, like a Matches in London, and people who really understand my business, like Nordstrom, Nordstrom Pop in the Space, which is run by Olivia Kim, who used to be at opening ceremony, is very understanding of my business and how it works. And her and I have a very close relationship. So I'll tell her like what's going on with different things, and she like gets it, and she really wants to support it. And to be honest, there's not a lot of retailers that are like that. So you really have to find the ones that are right for you.
You've got to find the right mix. And in financing production, because the problem for new designers is always the production you pay today,
Yeah.
and you get paid by your customers tomorrow. So
Or never.
Or never.
Yeah.
So this is something.
Yeah.
Does online trade for a new brand like yours help in that to get paid faster than?
Absolutely. I think that new designers should always start online, because there's also one critical thing that people don't realize that we as designers get to harness when we sell direct to consumer, is that you get market research. You know, and there's a lot of companies that pay a lot of money to actually talk to their customers.
Yes.
And so as a young designer, if you're able to send things directly to your customer and then get that feedback and actually see what your return and exchange rates are, I mean, come on, I know everything about how the desert boots fit because I did info at brothervellies.com. I only stopped managing that last summer. Every single email that went to info at brothervellies.com used to come to my cell phone.
Come on, really?
Yeah.
It was controlled by you
Literally,
directly.
yeah,
Literally.
yeah. Just until last summer it stopped.
So you have your receivables a bit faster through the online,
Yeah.
but the payables remain the payables with the artisans, which is to say that when
Totally.
you produce, you pay the
Totally.
same, sometimes the same day, which is
Yeah.
tough.
Totally.
You've been able to do it. So this means that also for a new brand, there's a way to balance the things and to find your way through this. I think the awards and the initial investments like the CFDA and this kind of stuff, they
Yeah.
help a lot.
Totally. Well, also, like when I lived I used to live in Los Angeles, and I didn't have anything basically when I lived there, and I didn't have a visa in the beginning. And what I would do to pay my rent was go around to like Goodwills, and I used to go to downtown Los Angeles all the time when all of those big jean companies like Seven for All Mankind and J Brand would drop off their rejects at this place called St. Vincent de Paul's. And so I would collect all of the rejects and I would mend them, and then I would sell them to consignment stores. And that was how I paid my rent. And I would keep like building from that. I'd have to have more money to then buy the rejects the next time and then get more and blah, blah, blah. So it's really just about scaling. And essentially, like, that's what I've done with the business also, because you just have to keep getting the money and then investing it back in and like going that way. And if you're not smart about it, you're gonna end up in a situation where you own like, 20% of your company in like the third year because you just sold so much of it. And I think that people get really excited and want to take money from people and grow and that sort of thing. But I think that especially when you're working with artisans and working sustainably, you have to maintain control of your business, because otherwise you're gonna get so much pressure to work on your bottom line. It's gonna be like, oh, you need to move your production to China.
Yeah.
And if you don't own the bulk of your company, you can't make those choices anymore and be like, actually, no, I need to. And I think for a lot of people, that's why they can't. And so for me, maintaining 100% ownership of my company up until now has been what's enabled me to work in the way that I have. Because I know for a fact that if I didn't own all of my company, there would have been changes that have been made by now.
Absolutely. We have some new brand that used to work with us that have gone through that. Big investors lost the property of the company, and then the nature of the company as well, because the company became an industrial company, produced here and there, and absolutely true. So if we want to put together the reasons of your success, I know it's always difficult because it's a mix of things. What would you put there? Because you have the vision of a product, so you're product oriented. You've always been product oriented. Since the first time I met you, it was 2 years ago, I think, one and a half.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
You were speaking only about products. You've been always product oriented.
Yeah.
But you're also very good in marketing, very good in communication. So can you put
I'm
down
also
a
very
list
persistent. So just so you guys know how we met, I had heard about you. I don't know if you even know the story.
Yeah.
And
From
yes.
Yeah.
And so and you were doing
From Abrima.
no, I don't know who I mean, many people talked about you. Many people, not all good. No, I'm joking. And so then I came here and actually watched a talk that you did. And then I was going to talk to you, but there was like a bajillion people.
That was in April last year.
Yeah, I guess. And then I was like, wow, like I don't know like how to navigate that sort of thing. And then I started sending emails to people on your team, and then we met at Starbucks in Times Square at like 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, because I wake up very early when I am here to go running, and so it's my problem.
It's the craziest place in the world.
It was bloody cold.
It was freezing, yeah.
And you were having some sandals, and it was so cold, and I noticed that because
Really?
I was freezing. I was freezing for you.
See that? I'm not an appropriate like weather dresser, so I
But
need
you
to move to
were
Los
you
Angeles.
had those beautiful sandals, Brother Valley. I fell in love for your shoes. Really, it's product, and then what?
Well, yeah, that's the thing, because the shoes have to sell on their own. They don't sit on the shelf with their story.
Boom.
They sit on their shelf next to like Miu Miu.
Yeah.
And people have to be like this one, So that has to be number one. I think number two is, being inventive about the way that we tell the story. I think that creating visuals is really important. I think the new generation is so like really short attention span.
Yeah.
So if it's not really visually captivating, they're just going to move on. Yeah. And I think that people are really inspired by like sustainable artisanal production, and I think that there's a huge, movement towards knowing where your clothing came from, and you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution.
That's another very good point. You see, you speak about all the issues of sustainability in a very natural way. And that's something unbelievable to me and to a person of my age, because it means that the new generation of designers have embedded sustainability in their way of work, in their DNA, and it comes out natural for you to speak in this way, to say it's the story, we are all part of the same problem and this and that. There's another characteristic of yours that has always impressed me, your imagery. They are incredible, your images. Whenever I see a campaign of yours, it's incredible. You told me, hey, Simone, but I did a lot of them in my apartment, or I recognize the place that we both love in Kenya, and which is now closed, and I recognize places in the Omo Valley.
Yeah.
So what's your approach to your visual communication?
Well, I'm a very visual person, and I love fashion's ability to tell stories. And I kind of grew up in that fairy tale world of fashion where I would read Vogue magazine, I'd flip through the pages and look at like Stephen Meisel's work and Grace Coddington's work and like really enter sort of a dreamscape. And I think for me, it's kind of telling that story about the people that we work with. And I think really early on, what struck me about spending time in Africa was how happy everyone there was. And we hadn't seen that a lot. Like coming from Canada, that was not, I mean, Canada's a pretty great country, but I love Canada, but you know, it's cold, yeah. But it's like you see World Vision commercials that are like, for pennies a day, and it's always this very sad thing. And so very early on, it was about putting imagery out there that was the way that I saw my experience that I was having in South Africa and Namibia, which was extremely positive and happy and bright and hopeful. And I think that was the focus. It was like, and we shot a lot of the people who were actually making our shoes. And I thought that was like, that was what I was interested in. That was the story. That was different. Why am I going to shoot it on a model? The model had nothing to do with this. You know, even the models that I choose now, like for our spring campaign, it's a girl, Adesua, who is from Nigeria. She's a very good friend of mine, and she inspires me in a lot of ways. We have a lot of conversations. There has to be something like more to it, you know. But the visuals are really important. I also was dating a photographer for 5 years, so that made it.
You model a lot for your own products, don't you?
Well, you have to be. It's like a new era. So
Tell
you
us
have
about
to be.
that. Tell us about this concept.
Well, yeah. I mean, even with the Fashion Fund, that was like a 4-month period of time where it was like a docu-series, you know, where they're following you every day. And that's a part of it now because people live their lives so much on social media. And I think people want to have a connection to the brand. And I think that you really have to be your brand and you have to just be authentic and transparent, you know. And if everything isn't coming up roses, that's okay, because I think that people will identify with that story. But you have to, like, you know, I think it's crazy. I have some friends who are designers that like don't wear their own clothes. And I'm like, you're crazy. You know, you can't get away with that anymore. Like if you don't want to wear it, who else is going to want to wear it too? So I think that's part of it. And they used to say, like, don't design for yourself. I don't know why people used to say that. I design for myself. I know if I want to wear it, other people are going to want to wear it too. So that's kind of how I think about it. But you have to be willing, I think, as a designer to put yourself out there at that point, but not to a point where it becomes sickening. You don't have to post a selfie every day.
And this is great because this concept of designing for yourself, I think we see this in your imagery. Whenever I see your campaigns, I see glamour, I see joy of life, lots of joy of life. You enjoy doing that. And I see a lot of Africa as well.
Yeah.
A lot of Africa as well. And not the traditional Africa with the Maasai people who jump.
Yeah.
The Africa of the artisans, the Africa of the places. I've seen what you've done in the Omo Valley, in the
Yeah.
resorts, and in all the places.
Yeah.
So that's such a pleasure. There's another aspect of shoes. Shoes are an assembled product. So when you scale up, you got to have somebody to do the industrialization of the product, which is
Yes.
to say, to produce, to industrialize, to define, and then produce all the components that then you need to assemble to make shoes.
Yes.
And people may not know it, but a shoe is constructed on a mold, which in the sector we call last, and that's very difficult to make. So you need some service when you grow up to do all this.
Yeah.
And we tried to find a service for that in Italy,
Yeah.
because I'm very proud to say that Italy is the best place in the world for shoes. And after Africa, of course, but Italy for, tradition, everything. If shoes were born in Italy, the rest is
true.
just a corollary of that.
Right.
So we went together to Italy. We traveled across Italy in my car, which has been an
He
experience.
speeds, like, it's like, I'm not joking.
And I destroyed the car the day after I left you in
I heard
Florence.
about
I had a huge accident, and
I'm glad you're okay. You guys think that he's kidding. He's really not kidding.
No, I speed, but we were in a rush. We were in a rush, and we went to see everything. So we went to see these guys there in Marche, which is a region of Italy where they make shoes. And to me, it's been something unbelievable to work with this company that does the industrialization of the product, and then to take all the patterns, all the components, or the cutting dies to Africa, and
Yeah.
to make in Africa with artisans.
Totally.
What was your feeling about that?
It felt a
Do
little
you
bit
feel
like
it to
growing
be-
up for me because So you guys know when I first started doing this, I mean, everything that I know about shoes I learned from people in Africa. And when you and I first started talking, you were like, you need to actually like get some actual like, tech packs. And I was like, what is that? I'm not kidding you guys. Like I have never seen a tech pack. That was not how we worked. It was like pencil on paper and then let's make a
most
pattern.
innovative shoe brand of our time, you had never seen a tech
I
pack
had never seen a tech
1.5
pack.
years ago.
No, yeah,
That's it.
literally.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I think even 1 year ago was the first
yeah,
time
1
I
year
saw
ago.
a
Yeah,
tech
it was
pack.
spring 2015. Yeah,
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 like-
it's true. Yeah. and
So, but that just goes to show literally, and this was like, what I think is so amazing, and I talked about this when I won the fashion fund, was like, when I actually won the fashion fund, it really wasn't me winning the fashion fund. It was the artisans in Africa that won that fashion fund because it was their knowledge and their ability and their skill, because there was not much that I could teach them. It was me having an idea and saying, how can we do this? And us working together to figure it out. And it was totally them. I mean, it's like, I couldn't have done this without them. I didn't even know how to make shoes. They were the ones that were making the shoes. Had nothing to do with me other than that I organized it and like how to create a vision a little bit. But that win was really all them. And now I think that it's amazing that we can take this like knowledge and like this, innovative approach to what we're doing in Italy and actually do a transfer of knowledge to Ethiopia and have, the stuff that we have that's coming out of Africa. And, I'll say this in front of some of my other peers there too, is like some of the most luxury product that's ever come out of that continent. It's amazing.
it's amazing.
It's
absolutely.
amazing. They do a phenomenal job. And, I've had people tell me to my face before, like, huge people in the fashion industry, like, you're not going to be able to stay there. You're
Seriously.
not. Oh, totally.
Seriously, you're not going to be able to stay
Yeah,
there.
totally. And like other people being like, oh, like you're never going to be able to get a heel out of that continent. And when we first met, the thing I said to you was like, I really want to be able to make a heel possible.
Yeah,
and you
and I
made
have
that
to tell
possible.
something to the public. The first heel she wanted to make was an impossible heel, a sort of sphere, which is gorgeous. It's a gorgeous pair of shoes of ladies, gorgeous. I'd like to be a lady to wear them. Gorgeous. But it's a sphere. Have you ever seen a heel like that? And she came to Mark and she said, so those people in Italy who are accustomed to working with the big brands, with the big names, they were like shocked. They were looking at each other saying, are we serious? Are we really going to do a heel like this, to make a heel like this? Then they made it.
Yeah.
So you innovated in Italy as well, not only in Africa. And I think this is thanks to the fact that you didn't know the sector. Because if you had been imbued with full of this stuff, you cannot do this, you cannot do that.
Totally.
The heel is only this. You wouldn't have done it.
Absolutely. All the time. If someone doesn't look at you, if someone from the industry that you're working in doesn't look at you like you're crazy, then you're not actually really innovating. Do you know what I mean?
That's a very good definition of innovation, how you are
Yeah.
innovative.
You need to get that look from the person where they're like, and then you're onto something. Seriously, that's pretty much a rule across the board
It's
for me.
absolutely
If
true.
they don't think that you're crazy in the beginning, then it's not working out.
If they don't tell you are mad, you are crazy, you are not on the right track.
Absolutely.
That's-
Seriously.
That's Aurora. I like it. I adore you. I like it. And where do you see your future? What is the evolution of the brand? Of course, you are scaling up.
Yeah.
More shoes, more online sales, some
Yeah.
more retail, and I hope also more shoes in Ethiopia.
Yes.
And
Many more
and
shoes.
this and that. But where do you want to go? For instance, usually you associate shoes to accessories.
Mm-hmm.
And I never see you, we were speaking about this before, we were talking about this a second ago.
Yeah.
I never see you with a bag.
Yeah.
So
I know.
you love shoes, you don't love bags.
Well, I love it. It's funny because to know me is to know that I typically have my credit cards and my ID in my back pocket and never really carried a bag. And so as a result, I lose my credit cards and my ID all the time.
So you need a bag.
So I need a bag. So we started doing bags for spring, which I love, and they've actually been selling really, really, really well. So I'm gonna keep going in that category. And then I think for us, it's like, yeah, expanding into other accessories categories. I wear hats all the time, so that's definitely an inevitable
That's true.
thing.
You have hat wherever you are in a photograph.
I
You
have
have a
lots of
hat.
hats, and we did some jewelry actually as a collaboration for
Ah,
spring
really?
summer 16
Where did you do it?
with Scotia. We did it here in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn
I guess we're
here.
not here, but
So
yeah, we did it in
jewelry,
Brooklyn.
hats, some bags, shoes. But what's the future of the brand? It's still a
Yeah.
shoe brand, or do you see it as a full-rounded accessory brand? What do you see?
If
Tell us
you
about your
must
future.
know, okay, let me
If you don't want
explain
to
this
answer, you
first.
don't
No, I'm going
answer.
to tell you. I'm going to tell you. Let me explain this first. One thing that's important to me is to tell stories about women.
Yes.
And, 40% of our sales are to men, but a lot of who we deal with every single day is women. I initially wasn't that psyched about creating heels because I have a history with heels, and heels were used as a way to suppress women early on and blah, blah, blah. So, I'm always thinking about women. I'm always thinking about female empowerment, and I'm always thinking about how we, present and support each other. And, I have a lot of friends that work in the cosmetics industry. Also doing my job, you end up talking about like, the other day we did a thing with Vogue where we were talking about like design, and it was a live stream, and all the questions that were coming in were like, did it with Selby Drummond. All the questions that were coming in were like, you guys have really nice hair. Can you tell me what you use in your hair?
Seriously.
Yeah, and I realized at that moment, like no matter what, as a woman in the public eye on any level, it's always going to come down to that, and I'm always going to be asked that. And so initially, I was very annoyed by it, and I would say like, I'm totally happy to do this interview, but we're not talking about what moisturizer I use or what hair products I use. I have a really great relationship with Estee Lauder, and I started talking to them a lot, and I found out that their number one selling product is actually skin bleaching cream, which was really upsetting to me.
No, seriously.
Yeah, that's their number one product. And I think that we still really need to have that conversation about how beauty is, presented and what it means. And, same with hair, like as an African American woman, I think that's come up a little bit with Becky with the good hair, with Beyonce and all that jazz. But I think that as a woman, I also feel, and as a woman who's working directly with women in Africa, and I've had some interesting conversations there as well, that I have a little bit of responsibility to delve into that realm. So, and, spending so much time on the ground there, I've really talked to them about like, what do you guys use? Like, some of these women, I mean, are like mind-blowingly beautiful, like, and also talk about Black Don't Crack, like, they have secrets there. So that might be something that we're delving into a little bit. He liked that one. He agrees.
I agree. Yes.
You really like
No,
it.
because I think about women I know. Okay. And you have to give me a promise. You have to make a promise now. You are a role model for many women here in the West, but also in Africa and the places where you work. We work with some thousands of women all across the continent, and they are formidable entrepreneurs, formidable artisans, and they always need to see some example of a successful independent woman who leads a business, because you are a role model for them. So we would like to invite you to visit not only Ethiopia and Kenya, the places where you work, but also some new places in Burkina and in Mali one day, where we make the fabric, which is on your shoes now, and where we have a huge amount of communities of women. We would like you to come just to tell your story to these women.
Absolutely.
Do you promise you do it?
Oh, absolutely promise, 150%. There's no
So
place
Chloe,
I'd rather
what
be.
is Chloe? Chloe, you got her.
Let's book the flight,
and we do it,
Chloe.
and in Haiti as well, with the women
Yes.
of Haiti as well.
Haiti
You've
is
got to
also
do
really
it.
important.
You've got to do it. And Aurora, let's now leave the possibility to the public to ask you some questions. But I want to say a thing before that. Years ago, I know several people in the Italian fashion industry, and years ago I had a beautiful conversation with a group of women who are the last generation of a very well-known Italian brand, one of the best brands of Italy, a brand which was known traditionally for bags and for fur. And so I don't say the name, but you can imagine that. And I had a conversation with them. I asked them, look, tell me about the story of your brand. And they were so passionate. And they told me the story of their grandmother, of their mother, of their owns. It's a brand all made by women. I tell you a thing. When I see you, when I speak with you, I see one of them. It's incredible. I see you as an innovator, as somebody who does something absolutely new, absolutely innovative, but also somebody who's been able to stay in the mainstream of traditional fashion. You are passionate for artisans, you are passionate for the product, you are passionate for something which is beautiful and to communicate the joy that you have inside you. I think this is a lesson for everybody, Aurora. You are really great. She's great.
Aw, thank you. That is so sweet. Thank you so much, you guys.
And now the questions, you know that we are dictatorial with questions. One there, one there. I say who speaks, and I cut you when I want to cut you. So go and ask the questions, but feel free to ask questions. And ask questions. What do you do there? What are the questions? Where are you? What do you do? I asked too many questions, you see that?
Maybe.
They are scared, they are all very shy. Yeah. There's a question there. Brava.
Hi.
Hi there.
I have a question about your quality control with artisans. Did you have any issues with that, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have issues with that, whether it's with artisans or like here in New York, you know. Well, there's a couple things that we do. I'll tell you guys something very serious. With Morocco, we have this one style of shoe which I love, but it kept coming out looking a little bit differently than it was supposed to. Very cool, but not at all the right shoe. So I made it a new style and sold it in the store. And it actually sells just as well as the other one. So that's one way. And that's a great reason to have a store, and also do your own online, you know. If something comes out a little bit differently, then it's like special, because it is special. It's like, why is it different? We used to have this whole thing in South Africa where there was one guy who only wanted to make the desert boot a certain way, where he would put the counter on the outside instead of the inside, because he was adamant that it should be that way and it was better that way. And I was like, you know what? Maybe you're right. And we just separated his shoes all the time. And I actually had some customers that preferred it. I mean, I can't really do that right now with Nordstrom. They're not going to like separate that for me.
Yeah.
But I think that ultimately it's really about maintaining an everyday communication, having someone on the ground that can actually go there and talking through the problems. And, you know, trying to identify things as early on as possible. It's always going to be a little bit crazy, though. And that's the hardest part about it. Absolutely, for sure. But you have to go there.
Do you have a team member on the ground in each country, or?
Not always. I mean, we try to make everyone in our in the workshops be the team member.
That's great.
You know, like I predominantly, this is also kind of crazy, but I'm going to tell you guys, I will go sometimes a whole week without opening my laptop, because for the most part, my business is run through WhatsApp.
Yeah.
You know, and so now it's like FaceTime me, or like, can we get on Skype, or, you know, send me a picture. That's the dreaded question that I ask, where they're like, oh no, it's like, send me a picture, you know, and you have to like keep asking sometimes until you get the picture. And I realized that, you know, the further along that I've gotten and I get a little bit busier, I don't have as much time. Like during the Fashion Fund, I was not allowed to travel to Africa, basically. So we had a lot of problems that developed during that time, because, you know, it was the first time that I wasn't going there and like hand-holding through the whole time. And you just have to find ways to do that. You have to see things. But if you can, you know, manage it, it's great to have a team member on the ground who actually understands what, you know, kind of quality you're looking for, because our level of quality control is very hard to explain to somebody in that environment where they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, no, like actually, like that one bead has to be, and it's like, are you crazy? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
like it really has to be kind of a reciprocal process, and you have to really both feel each other out and explain why. And like I also had, which was amazing. But one of the guys from my workshop in South Africa who runs that workshop, basically him and his wife manages all of our Springbok shoes, actually came to the US and went to a Nordstrom's when we were doing a Nordstrom pop like a year ago. And they saw like we had a huge photo in the front window at Nordstrom's, and they actually were able to go into the shoe section and see where our shoes were sitting. And at that moment, I think it really clicked for them because they were realizing, like, you know, wow, if this is weird, like, people are going to see it. And also, like, bringing examples of other product that your product is sitting next to on the shelf.
Yeah.
And being like, I just want to let you know, like, this is where it, literally, this is what it's sitting next to. And so if you know, it's not right, people are going to notice it and they're going to send it back. And being really communicative about that, like being like, sometimes they'll like forward an email or something and be like, just wanted to let you know this happened.
You know, we speak about the supply chain every time during these conversations at FIT, sustainability, the role of the artisans and so on. That's exactly the point. The artisans are part of a team. You see the workers, those who are in the supply chain, not as somebody detached from you, as it is today. You send production away, you give production to a mega dealer who gives it to another dealer and then to another dealer. There are 4 layers of suppliers. No, here there is a community. The company, the fashion brand, is a community of people around the designers who make the product. This is the old concept of a fashion brand. And then you gave us a powerful excuse. The next time some fashion brand finds mistakes in our supplies, I'll say, guys, it's a new model. And that's a
like,
powerful
this is
excuse. It's a new model. What do you
Yeah,
want? It's innovation.
No, totally.
Is there another question? Where is it? I don't see you because there are the lights which are so strong. There.
there's one
You
over
go
here.
there to the mic. You go there to the mic.
There's one over here, Simone, sorry.
Ah, no, sorry. There. No, I don't see you. Ah, one
Hi.
there. Sorry. Bona. Hey, no, sorry, Sasa, you know me.
All right. Hi, I just wanted to ask
There.
a question. Do you see a change in the vision that you've had for your brand from when you first started? And if so, in a few years, what do you want the legacy of Brother Vellies to be?
Yeah, I definitely see a change. I mean, when I first started, it was like my goal was like to make sure that the rent could get paid every month, you know? And I think like the thing too is like when I was going there and what I was doing, like these were not Instagram moments. Like there was nothing cute or sexy about like getting your car broken into like on the way to Sossusvlei in Namibia. Do you know what I mean? Like it was not. There were moments in Kenya where like our power got cut off by someone in the middle of the night, and you only know that because you hear the ceiling fan stop, and you're like, geez, you know, like this was like really. I mean, the struggle was super real. So it was like one foot in front of the other every day, you know, like, can we get this next shipment here? Like, you know, really babysitting the process as much as possible all the time. And I think now for me, it's like the struggle is still about continuing to scale it in a way that makes sense. And I think our legacy is just really going to be about, you know, empowering people and people who are artisans, and not just in Africa, like anywhere in Africa, in the world where there's artisans that are working. You know, I think we're definitely going to expand outside of Africa. And I also think that we really need to reshape the conversation about leather and fur. I've started doing this weird thing where I like Snapchat every time I see faux fur in the garbage, which is like actually surprisingly often. And I've yet to see any like real fur in the garbage. So I think we really have to have an honest conversation about sustainability and what that looks like, especially when we're talking about animal byproduct fur. I wake up every day to like a couple really intense like Instagram rants from people. And I really think that we need to, you know, honestly think about that and have a conversation. I was vegan for 8 years. So I think if anything, like I just want the legacy of Brother Vellies to be about reshaping the conversation and not having everything like be so black and white.
As we said with Marie-Claire Davot at the beginning of this series of conversations, Marie-Claire Davot is the Chief Sustainability Officer of Kering. Sustainability is a journey. Sustainability is not a blueprint. To be sustainable, you do this, this, and that. It's a journey. And one of the journeys that we are doing together, that we do at the Ethical Fashion Initiative, is the journey around leather. Around leather and fur. We are trying to produce the 100% green leather in Ethiopia by eliminating chrome, by eliminating sulfides, by eliminating all the pollutants. And this is one of the things of the future. Leather will remain because it's a byproduct.
Yeah.
And it's the way in which you process it, the way in which you use it, and the fact that these kind of products are made to last.
Yeah.
To last for a while, to remain in your wardrobe. It's not fast fashion where you throw everything away after 3 weeks,
Right.
or where it falls apart from some unfortunate cases.
I think also, like, for me as a designer, one thing that's really important is just surrounding myself, and I urge you guys to do the same thing, with other people who are like-minded and have kind of the same goals. Daniel Corrigan from Simon Miller is a really good friend of mine, and when I started doing resort development, I was like, oh, I need to do this with denim. And I remember that Daniel was talking about, you know, all this like denim that they have that just was rejected, and I was like, dude, like, what kind of deal do you want to give me on this, like, reject denim that you just have sitting there? Like, let's use it. You know, let's use it. Let's tell the story. Let's turn this, like, you know, reject garbage stuff into something that's amazing. And, you know, we do that with a lot of donated stuff that's in Africa that's just sitting in piles. In Marrakesh, we take a lot of denim from there that's just been sitting, and we repurpose that. And I just had a meeting with the Fish and Wildlife Department because, you know, we want to start repurposing a lot of fur. And they're like, well, we don't know how to deal with that. They're like, we need a certificate of origin on this fox. And I'm like, okay, but I got it at the flea market. It's like, you know, it's like from the 70s. And they're like, oh, well, I don't know what. And I'm like, well, do you want me to, like, buy new fur? Is that better for you? And they're like, no, like, we should repurpose it. I'm like, okay, so then you guys need to figure out what your policy is there. And in a lot of cases, you know, that was a moment, again, where you have to challenge people to, like, you know,
Absolutely.
expand.
To see things in a different way, absolutely. Your turn.
Hi, you kind of touched on this a little bit just now about materials, but just curious more about your raw material sourcing strategy for things that aren't repurposed and where you're finding a lot of those materials.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times, so Springbok is something that I use a lot. A lot of people have questions on, and that's obviously all from South Africa, and Springbok's an animal byproduct. And the person who runs my workshop in South Africa is a very, he's like extremely close to me. And he actually goes to a lot of like farmers and works with them directly. And I think that it's really about visiting as many places as possible. I work with another tannery in Namibia called Nakara, which I visited on multiple occasions. And I think it's just about going there and checking in sometimes and being like, what's happening here? The other thing that's a little bit crazy is like, you have to remember it's Africa sometimes. And like, we had this whole situation, which was why I was at Fish and Wildlife with Morocco, where, you know, we have these shoes that are python, and he, God love him, had this situation where he got python that was from whatever this gentleman's name was that lives in the community where his like aunt lives or something like that. And there was a python there, and it was like coming in the house or something like that. Anyways, this guy shot it and then, you know, gave Malik this python, and then he used it. And he was like, well, it was dead. And I was like, right, but we don't have papers for it. And he's like, so what am I supposed to do, throw it out? And I'm like, well, Fish and Wildlife is kind of saying, yeah. You know? And so because of that one article that was shipped over, and even though the way that he got it, I felt like made sense, you know, that then became a shipment that contained Fish and Wildlife that was seized by the Fish and Wildlife Department. We're talking about a couple hundred pairs of shoes. So you really have to be thoughtful about the way that this is all happening. And, you know, sometimes the ways that make the most sense, even like when you want to get something from a farmer or you want to have people start collecting the raw materials, if there's not paperwork for it, you can't use it. So even in America still, we have a lot of like this red tape stuff that doesn't let us do things necessarily in sustainable ways.
I remember one time I was with some big fur producer from Italy in Uganda. They had come, you remember, Chloe, we had a visit to the communities where we used to work in Uganda, and then somebody came and said, you are those people from Italy, yeah, you make furs, yeah, I've got a mountain of leopard skins. And those people said, come on, guy, now, you know, there are international regulations and this and that. They were all dead. And where? Where did you? In my courtyard. So yeah,
Right.
there are these things. Yeah.
Well, it's the same like we used to use zebra in South Africa. And, you know, it was totally fine. I had some of them on the website. People started getting upset about it because they felt like, you know, to me, even growing up in Canada, a zebra is like a unicorn. It's like this mythical thing, right? So then it was like, okay, we'll do a zebra printed calf hair. So then I brought all of that to South Africa. I was sitting there, and then like 4 of the guys came into the room that I was in, and they were like, we have to talk. I was like, what's up? And they were like, you know, someone is lying to you. This is not a zebra. This is a cow that's been printed with a zebra stripe. And I was like, yeah, I know. Like they, you know, like people don't want us to be using zebra. And they were like, why? And I was like, well, you know, in America, it's like they think that zebras are like these like crazy endangered animals or something. And they were like, why would you kill a cow to save a zebra? The cow has so much more value. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And that's just an example of like where we're on completely different pages.
Absolutely true. And you've got to be responsible. You've got to be responsible with endangered species. You've got to respect the international conventions and laws. That's true. But then you have to be also responsible on the ground when you are
Absolutely.
with people and everything. And one way to be responsible is the processing of these hides and skins. I think you have some, not in this one, you have another model that you make with us where you have chrome-free leather.
Yeah.
That we make in Ethiopia. And it's
This one's
chrome-free.
chrome-free, too.
This is chrome-free
Yeah.
too. And it's chrome-free, and it's a piece of innovation. Everybody speaks about chrome-free and this and that, but then nobody does it. It's doable.
Totally.
Today you can have leather which is clean and which makes this material an ethical material to be used.
And all you guys have to do to like be a part of this solution too is like go in when you go into leather suppliers, be like, do you have a chrome-free section? Even if that's not like a deal breaker for you in that moment, but just as long as they know that people are asking for that and there's a demand, they will start carrying it more. All you have to do is ask the question.
Ask questions. What is your effluent treatment plant? How do you treat? How you dispose your waste? Everything. You've got to ask it.
Yeah.
As a buyer, as a company, that's your duty. It's your duty to ask about the relationship with environment and the environmental impact. It's true. Next.
Yes, we have a couple of questions from the audience.
Yes.
I actually have to pass the mic down.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions regarding your company and the future. And first one is you talked about a lot of material, how you source and all this, and following the regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any kind of initiative that or agenda to save the animal planet? And the second question is, like, is this the only leathers that you're gonna use from Africa, or you have alternative sources? And related to that, when you talk about leather, there is a lot of pollution happens from the tannery
Yes.
industry, and how does that sustainable in African community and that area where it's been processed? Thank you.
Let me ask about the sustainability of leather.
Yeah.
You asked the leather.
Okay. So we don't source just in Africa. We also source from South America as well, our leather, and from Canada. I think for me, it's just about, I don't know. I was vegan for 8 years, so I definitely like take it very seriously. I think that you just have to make, as an individual designer, you have to make choices that you feel really confident about. And I think that that also comes down to like what you're designing and what its shelf life is going to be too. And like, can you see people wearing this for a long time? And if you are using the animal, are you using the entire animal? And can you stick to animal byproduct as much as possible? I mean, cows are like the biggest pollutant in the world. Totally, it's a thing. you know? So I think as well, part of your messaging as a designer, if you want to be sustainable and you're using those materials, is also saying to your customer, you don't need to buy everything all of the time. Maybe, just buy this one thing. Maybe we need to buy less. Maybe that has to be like part of the story. I don't know, you have to educate people in that regard, because there's no perfect solution. And we have this whole program at the CFDA that's 17 months where it's like there's 10 of us, it's me, Problem, Maria Cornejo, Tome, and we have these conversations, and someone from Stella McCartney came and talked, and they were talking about like, the alternatives, and we did a lot of like talking about like faux fur versus real fur, and like, other options other than leather for shoes. And you really just have to say like, what is the best that I can do with what I've been given, and how can I create a value here, But for me, vegan leather is just not something that I'm super interested in. And maybe I'll find a great vegan leather down the road. Listen, every day I wake up and I say, should I do this in like a faux fur version? And so far every day my answer has been no. I think that marabou is kind of a fun option. I think that feathers are a fun option. But I also think that it's about teaching your customer to just buy less and a higher quality of that thing. And how can we continue to translate things through longer periods of time as well, not just one season.
That's a very good point. On tanneries in general, the first element in the tannery we operate in Ethiopia, and from where we supply the African leather of Aurora, was the effluent treatment plant and the system of disposal of solid waste, to be sure that you do it well. First point, because it's true that tanneries pollute, but it's also true that tanneries pollute because the effluents and the solid waste are not treated properly. In a lot of countries all over the world, there's a bypass, there's a switch, and all the effluents are thrown directly into the rivers or into the sea without any treatment. So that's the first point. Even in traditional tanning, there's a way to treat things. The second point is that as soon as we started operating this tannery with the ownership of the tannery, we started implementing a program for chrome-free and sulfide-free in order to eliminate the main pollutants. I don't go into the technical thing, but I tell you that this is possible, and with some qualities of leather, we are already doing that. For instance, in the case of goat skins that have a particular structure, we are already there. These are goat skins that are chrome-free. In a year's time, we'll have the same goat skin, which is chrome-free and sulfide-free. It's a process, but the starting point is a clean process with traditional tanning. So that's the baseline. Wherever you work in leather, you have to ask that. When you go to leather where there is no treatment plant, where there is no solid waste disposal, that is a disaster. In that case, the tanning industry kills, and it kills in many countries, but this is not what we want to do there. And the incredible thing is that, to my knowledge, there are only 2 places in the world where they are seriously testing chrome-free, sulfide-free, and all these things. One is in Tuscany, the place where I come from in Italy, and one is in Ethiopia, where we work with Aurora. The next question.
Actually, we have one over here, and then we'll go over there, if that's okay. I know she's been waiting.
The poor lady has been there forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Hi, Aurora.
Hi.
Hi. I'm actually South African, so thank you for recognizing the country.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'm just curious to know, you said that you empower the people that you work with. How have you seen, or can you give an example of how you've changed people's lives there? Improve their quality of life through your business?
Yeah.
And my other question was how did you form your initial relationships that you have your close relationships now? How did you start them with the local people there?
Okay, so to the first question, I think that the one biggest way that you can kind of impact people is having them feel that they can rely on you, which takes time. I think for me, early on when I started working with a lot of these artisans, they would see it like, okay, this is the money that I have now. It's almost like I should take it and run because they didn't trust that I would necessarily stay. And once they realized that I was there to stay, they were then able to take that money and start investing it into their own lives in a way that was more meaningful and had more longevity. But even in South Africa, I mean, one of the things that was really important to me early on was that everybody that we worked with was able to make the entire shoe. And it came from this like deep-seated paranoia that something would like happen to me. I don't know what, but I was like, I'm working with all these people, and if something happens to me, they're going to be out of work. And so one of the solutions that we came up with early on in South Africa was, if we could teach these people how to make the shoe in its entirety, then no matter what happens with me or what happens with my company, they will always have that knowledge, and knowledge is the one thing that you can never take away from someone. So I think for me, that idea that you really teaching people how to do things on their own and do complete projects is really crucial. Also early on, one thing that I learned was not to build my own workshops. I tried that. I failed at that. I realized the best people to run the workshops are the people from that place, and to really develop them as entrepreneurs. And, you know, I hope that one day, you know, they will go on and create businesses that are much bigger than the businesses that I'm even doing for them. We've had guys in our workshop that have gone off and like created their own companies, which I think is amazing. And we have women in Kenya that did the same thing. And the woman that runs the workshop that I'm with in Kenya is a woman, and she's a single mom, and she mainly works with other single moms as well. And a lot of those women, we create the patterns in such a way that they're actually able to take a lot of it home and actually work on it there while they are looking after their children, which some people think is controversial, but you have to make sure that it's done in a way that you're, you know, checking in. And have people said that to you? Because, so basically in Kenya, yes, we do this thing where the pattern pieces on the Maasai sandal, I developed it in a way that the women can take part of it home and actually bead from home while they watch their children. And then I had somebody once be like, well, how do you know that it's not child labor? Yeah, and I was like, God, like, you know.
It's absolutely true, and we are redoing a standard of fair labor for the informal sector, which is to say for petty cottage artisans who work at home, who work on a street, because the fair labor concept has to be adapted to the conditions of people, and has to enable people to work and to struggle their way out of poverty. We are redoing this with Auret van Herden, who was here with us 2 or 3 lectures ago, and these are the points that we touch in that. I have experienced one time in Laikipia in northern Kenya, in a community, there was a woman who used to come with a baby, and we had this very rigid approach, no kids in the workplace. So one of our officers there told me, Simone, I'm going to throw her out. But then we said, look, but if you throw her out, what does she do?
Right.
She will starve, the baby will die. So you've got to have this flexibility, which is not flexibility to bend the rules, but it's flexibility to get the rules to do the good of people.
Totally.
That's the thing, and I completely agree with you. Towards the end of the year, you will see published on our website also an impact assessment of the work of Aurora, the impact of people in Ethiopia, where she works with us, and how the life of the people who make these shoes is changing through this work. You will see it towards the end of the year, because when you do impact assessment, first you do a baseline, you see how they live, what they have, what they don't have, and then you wait like a year to see what is the impact, and then you measure that, and year after year you measure that. So I hope we are able to offer this as well with Brother Velis. The next one, I know that Sass is frying. 2 more.
Hello, Aurora. My name is Anthony Bruce. I'm a future FIT student.
Sweet.
Hey, grande.
My question is, I noticed like in your pictures and stuff that you take, I know you're like, you make accessories and stuff like that, but do you ever think about like going into like clothing, like women's wear, like, or even men's wear?
No.
No?
Only because, well, I do make clothes for a presentation,
Okay.
but I have a lot of really amazing friends who do a really good job making clothes, and I feel like they don't need me. You know? I
That's a
think
very
it's okay for me to, stay in my lane.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Focus on your core business. So the next one.
Hi, thanks for coming.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for.
I was in Africa for 10 years ago, traveling, and I just felt really moved being there and want to go back. But I'm curious about what's happening, like manufacturing moving over there, and like what do you think is happening with the fashion industry, and what's your vision for it as a continent
In Africa, you mean?
in Africa?
I mean, I think we could both answer this question.
Big question, huh?
Yeah. For me, I think it's really important that a lot of the manufacturing jobs that do go over there really focus on the artisanal skill, because I don't think that we need to turn, I don't think that we need it to be another China situation there, which I think it has definitely the potential to become. I think as individual designers, one thing that's really important, and I know to touch on what you were also asking a little bit, is just to meet people there, have personal relationships with them, and really develop them. And I think as a designer, that's what I would urge other designers to do, to really partner with workshops there, invest in those workshops, help grow those workshops, and have a partnership there, because I think that with the skills that are there and the workforce that's available there, it has huge potential.
And this is Africa. I think Africa is one of the places of couture for the future. Couture is in Africa today. You have a lot of emerging brands and designers, and we are organizing pop-up stores, even here in the US, in collaboration with a very well-known guy who organizes these things for African designers. But we want you also in Haiti, Aurora, because I see here in front of me Paula Coles, who is the person who manages with Chloe a very beautiful hub for artisans to work in the industry of fashion. I always say that my friend Omoyemi Akerele is the princess of Africa. She's from Nigeria. I say that Paula and Chloe are the princesses of Haiti. And we need the third princess in Haiti, who is you. And so you've got to promise to me that sooner or later you also expand your reach to Haiti. Do we have other questions?
Yes, it is. Thank you. She's amazing, right?
She is.
This, just so you guys know, was my, this is, yes. Yeah. This is like the PDF version of my application for the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund. So, in case you guys were wondering what that is.
So I want to thank both of our speakers who've had an incredible conversation that we have. And again,
As usual, we thank the FIT for this beautiful series of conversation. We hope to have them in the future. Thanks, Saf. Thanks, Joanne. Thanks, Mary. And we hope to see you again next year, in the next academic year, to talk about sustainability and the fashion industry.
I would also like to say one quick thing while we're here in this room of all of you amazing people, that we are actually hiring. So, yes, we are.
thank you, Simone. Thank you, Aurora.